Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about how to find the language aims inside of a classroom textbook so that we can later create materials that match the language aims so we can also help out our student population. So what you're going to need in order to do this is, first you're going to need some textbook, preferably the school's textbook or the textbook that you use for your classroom, and you're going to need the internet as well. All right, so in order to teach, we must first know ourselves. So the first thing you want to do is look at the first part of the book, which shows you what the book wants you to focus on as an educator and wants the students to learn and to know. So, as you can see, there's various sections and aims and goals inside of each unit. And what you're going to do as an individual, or what I would do, is first talk to my co-teacher and figure out exactly what part of the book, if any, they want me to focus on. If they don't want me to focus on any part of the book, then I'm going to focus on the language aims that they use inside of the book. You can find those language aims, and it'll usually be some variants of listen and talk or something like that. And it's the first. It often comes directly after the title page. So you want to get your language aims from the first part of the book. So it'll come from the title page and the language and listen and talk 1 and listen and talk 2. Now, individuals have different way of processing information and learning information. So as an educator, it's important that you understand how it is that you process information and how you learn and how you remember, so that you can turn that into a way of finding information and finding language aims and creating materials that are going to help out your student population. And that's not to say that you should make your students learn the same way as you, but as an example, for me, I'll look at the language aims of a particular lesson and I'll write them in a little notebook such as this. On the title page of each lesson or unit inside of the textbooks, especially the ones that we use here in South Korea, there'll usually be the language aims will be displayed in some variants of "in this lesson you will learn." So as you can see, and because of copyright infringement, I have to just show you here. I wrote down in my very horrible writing the conversation aims of the lesson, as well as alternative language practice that they want the students to understand. So here they want students to understand how to use it in this type of sentence, and how the students should use if in this type of sentence. So the first part is the conversation, which is what we should focus on first and foremost. If we can figure out a way to fit in the alternative language practice or the language use that they also want the students to know, then that's great, and that helps out our co-teachers as well, because they're also testing them on that stuff as well. But first and foremost, we want to use the available conversations that are on the title page. The next thing we want to do is look at the listen and talk section of the book itself, because we're going to see exactly how the book wants the students to understand the different variants of the ways that they can use the type of language that we're focusing on. So now, because most of us are not grammarians and do not have advanced degrees in linguistics, we need to understand how to use the internet so that we can know exactly what type of structure that we're dealing with. Because in South Korea, especially, and I can't speak for Japan or Malaysia or any of these other places that push a lot of English education. But in South Korea in particular, they focus on the grammar translation method. That's kind of where the history of the language comes from, or how they used to study language very hard, and it's bled into the language study of the day. And so, understanding the history, we can now understand exactly how we need to approach this particular problem, which is, how do I find the language aims in the first place, so that I can therefore translate or turn it into something that is not only useful but fun and interesting for our student population. Without delving too deep into linguistics, it's important that you have at least a peripheral understanding of these three terms right here: syntax or structure, semantics, meaning, and pragmatics, use. It is you need to understand these, because if you understand these, then you can begin to understand exactly how to find more accurately the language aims that each unit that you're presented with is trying to have the students dig out. Now, the first question I ask myself when I'm looking for the language aims inside of the unit or the chapter which we're studying is, what kind of question is this, or what information are they after? So as an example, how do you go to school? Well, how do you go to school? Meaning what? So are we talking about time? Are we talking about location? Are we talking about distance? Or what is the exact type of information that we want? Now, breaking this down bit by bit, I can see that we're talking about with the type of transportation that we take to go to a particular place. In this case, school. The next question I ask myself is, well, which part of the question do they want to use repetitively, and which part of the question can I take out information and put new information in? So again, I look at it, and again, I say, well, which part of the sentence or question can I take out and keep the same basic idea, but introduce new ideas and concepts that help me explore the question in greater length and deeper detail. Meaning that I can approach it from different ways, and I can understand how to use the sentence or the question differently in different type of contexts. So after studying my question over and over and over again, I can see that this is the part of the sentence that is replaceable. If I take out any other part, then I alter the meaning, I alter the overall syntax, the structure, and it affects the semantics and the use as well. And so this is what I focus on. Now I say to myself, what is this thing? Well, it's a noun. School is a noun, right? And what type of noun is it? Well, it's a place. So now I can create a list of places inside of my head, right? The next thing I do is I go through the same process again with the answer to the question. Now, I might think to myself, oh, there's many ways to answer this question. But again, I'm trying to focus on the language aims that the actual book wants me to identify. And so while I might think that it's interesting and useful to do these other things, actually the book wants me to focus on this one thing right here. So I'm going to focus there. And we might find other language aims if we study the text in more detail. But I do believe that streamlining at least one lesson at a time helps to the students to stay focused on a single idea, right? So here we see, I go to school. We know school is a place. By bus. Now, what is bus? What kind of thing is bus? Well, bus is a noun. And what type of noun is it? Well, it's an object. And what does the object do? Well, it transports. And so now I'm talking about going to a place by some sort of transportation. So again, I've identified not only the place, but how I'm going to arrive at the place. So again, I can see what they want me to do, and then I can begin to identify how exactly I want to approach this particular lesson, or how I'm going to make materials for this particular lesson. All right, I've done to the same process with the second conversation. Now, although this would be part of a different lesson than I was going to focus on with my first conversation, here I can see that I've also identified not only time, which can be changed out for different things. So I can focus on numbers here, or how time works, or whatever, and I can also I can change minutes or hours or days. But I also see the word about. Now, if I'm unfamiliar with how the grammar of the word about, exactly how it's functioning inside of the sentence to change and which part of the sentence it's actually attached to or modifying, I can go to the Google machine. Okay, so after I go to Google, I type in the words, what part of speech is the word about? And I can see that I'm just going to click the top link. Okay, so there's different definitions. The first is a preposition, the next is an adverb, and the next is an adjective. So I scroll down and see if there's anything else. So after studying and looking at the sentence and back again, I'm just going to rush through this because I've already looked at this. But I see that it means almost or nearly. So the definition is almost or nearly. And I look back at my sentence one more time and I decide, well, about is modifying 25, which is modifying minutes. So minutes is a noun, 25 is an adjective. That means about is modifying an adjective, which makes it an adverb. So knowing that, I can go back to the Google machine. So the next thing I want to identify is the type of adverb about is. So after going back to the Google machine, I type in the words, what type of adverb is about? And again, I'm just going to click the top link. It's not always the case, but often it is the most useful. But you have to keep in mind that they're paying for ad space, and so therefore they're the ones that show up at the top. But anyways, if I'm completely unfamiliar with adverbs, then I'm going to go through and study each type very, very meticulously, very carefully. But I've already been here, so after going through each one, I look down to and I see that it is actually an adverb of frequency. So then I begin to identify some words that I can plug in that are going to either have the same meaning or change the meaning or be just nonsensical. If I want to continue to look at the word and see and familiarize myself with the word, I can also go to the Google machine and type in the words synonyms for about. And again, I've identified that it's not a preposition, it is an adverb. And so I go through and I say, well, it's not indicating movement, it's not indicating location, it is indicating a number or quantity. So I look at the words approximately, roughly, around, roundabout, in the region of, circa, of, in order of, something like. And this begins to give me an idea of different words that I want to use if I want to take my lesson in that direction. But at the same time, it also helps me understand what words can we replace and how to answer questions that may come up in the future. Right. This is how I go about finding the language aims and goals for each unit so that I can go about creating lessons that will span over a period of time. And actually also how I can identify the overall arching theme of each unit, which we'll get into next time when I explain exactly how it is to begin to make worksheets for each lesson, which is something that I like and I focus on and I think that I'm pretty good at. So until then, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. This is not for money, this is for education, so take it as you will.